I was over at Lowe's a few days ago and I hadn't been there in a few months, so whenever I go to a Home Depot, any kind of store that sells LED lighting or lighting in general, I check out what's new, what's the latest, what's going on. Obviously I stay tuned with all the news sources as well, but there's nothing like having an actual product to look at. And I did notice something new, and obviously we're all familiar with most of the regular old LED replacement bulbs that you can get. We did a whole episode on it a couple episodes ago, which LED light bulb should I buy? But now we're getting into a more specialized game, and it's cheaper now than it was. You're now going to say, well, what's the specialized game? Tell us. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to cover part of this up to be more dramatic. Sylvania, which is one of these light bulbs that I reviewed on the show and told you not to buy it anyway, anyways, I think one of them I just told you to stay away from. But this one is a bit better. But it has this extra lighting on here. Otherwise, it looks like a pretty standard LED, ultra LED 60 watt replacement bulb. But there is this sunset effect. And we'll see if we can focus on that. And if not, we'll just put it up on a superimposed image. Sunset effect. I looked at it and I said, wait. What does that mean? And it took me a second, literally a second to say, oh, okay, they have to come up with a new term because Philips and I think one other company figured out what term they were going to use. So due to copyrights and trademarks and all this, they have to come up with their own name, although there's no trademark on it. So maybe they just made something up. Sunset effect. That is the effect. It's their name for it, but it's a good name. Like I've talked about in previous episodes, we're used to regular old incandescent light bulbs that when you dim them down, they get to that nice warm glow. It's romantic. It's like the sunset. Let's put an image up. There we go. We're all used to that. CFL bulbs, fluorescents in general, and LEDs don't do it. They weren't built to do it. They just do not do it unless they have some help. So what they've been doing, a company like Sylvania has been doing this. Philips came up with a bulb over a year ago. It's called the dim tone. It only comes in one variety in North America, which is a BR30 flood, and it was $30 or more. And I don't know that it was that compelling at that price. They'll sell it at a premium price when really they should be selling it at probably at a loss initially just to get it out there. And ultimately this technology is going to have to move its way mainstream. Because people are used to it, you could convince people that, well, LED is new and it doesn't do this sunset thing, and usually you just get used to it. But I think most people are going to say, well, I want that warm glow effect. So at the end of the day, this is a pretty standard light bulb. For an LED, it's 10 watts for 60 watt equivalent. It's 800 lumens. It's going to last 20 years, we assume. But it's got the sunset effect. So what does that mean? It has amber LEDs in addition to the warm white LEDs, and this is a 3000 Kelvin warm white. There's 2700, there's 3000. So this is a little more brighter white than warm white, and I already tested this myself just to see it, and yeah, it's definitely brighter white. But it has amber LEDs that turn on at a certain point. The problem is, and I believe that the Philips, in the videos that I've seen, the Philips dim tone bulb or flood bulb does it right, where it actually creates a very nice ramp and an adjustment zone so that you get that wonderful effect without it being too noticeable. And that's the big problem. You don't want to have some magical point where within a couple steps of dimming that your amber LEDs just switch on basically and your white LEDs go away. Well, guess what, Sylvania? Good job, because you nailed it on this one. I don't understand, and perhaps they want, all the packaging says, oh, it's only going to work with certain dimmers and all this, whatever. You have to make it work with everything. I know that you guys want to make it work with a few dimmers at this point, but that's completely ludicrous. So I don't understand why you would introduce a product that's priced reasonably at $15 and still make it crappy. What I will say, and we'll do a little unboxing, is that the packaging is simple. There's a number of LEDs, including the Cree. Once you open it, you've destroyed the packaging. Like, forget it. You can return it, and they're going to send it back to the factory, and they're going to get it redone, and it's going to cost people money. This is very simple packaging. You open it up, you pull this off, you know, and literally there's nothing, there's no seal, there's nothing, that stuff that you got to, you know, the whatever they call it, not bubble wrap, but anyways, the stuff that you got to cut through, and it can cut you. None of that. You just do this, you pull the bulb out, and you're done. Pretty standard bulb. I would say it weighs maybe a little bit more than other traditional or comparison equivalent bulbs, mainly because it's got some additional electronics, perhaps to drive the additional LEDs. And the LEDs themselves are not that expensive, or I mean expensive in terms of weight. It feels pretty hefty compared to a traditional Cree or other LED bulbs. The challenge is the dimming. The challenge is this transition, and I want to show that to you now in great detail. And then we're going to rate this. I'm going to rate this on dimming, and I'm going to rate this on sunsets. And let's do that right now. So you're going to ask, what's the verdict? The verdict is, well, should we really nail them, or should we really be nice? That's the question. Well, let's just overall say it's a light bulb, it's LED, it's the same type of energy efficiency like I've gone over earlier. It has this addition of the sunset effect, but as you could see in the video, it kind of switches on very quickly. And I can point you in links to some other videos of the Philips dim tone, which does have a much better tone, what a concept, what a name, of going from the white down to the amber. So, Sylvania, I like your company. I actually used to buy halogen mini floods that were ceramic from you back in the 90s. They were great. I think that was Osram Sylvania. But anyways, I think it's still the same company. I'm glad you guys are still around. You're still doing stuff with lighting, obviously. It's a huge part of your business, or the only part of your business. But if you're going to come out with one of these and you're going to claim sunset effect, and you're basically going to be probably the first one or nearly the first one to do it, especially at a $15 price point, do it better, because it sucks, okay? I'm going to give you a rating of, out of 5 sunsets, 5 being the best, you're going to get 1. And the reason is because at the low end, it's far too amber. Number one, our traditional light bulbs do not go that amber. They're not that actual color. They're not that deep, and it depends. It's just too amber. It's too weird. It doesn't look appropriate. And number two, you have this range, and we literally found it right about 45%, where within a couple percentage points of that in terms of where the dimmer is, or if you're running on dimmer, module, software, whatever it is, it just goes. It just switches right on, and that is ridiculous. And this was on 2 different dimmers that we noticed this, so it can't be that it's just a problem with the dimmer. I tried a low-end dimmer and a high-end dimmer, which is one of the ones, one of the smart home Insteon dimmers, and one of these slide dimmers from Ace Hardware, basically. Both had the same problem. So that's an issue. Your bulb does experience, in general, when dimming, a little bit of stair step. It was okay. It wasn't really, didn't really see any flicker, which is good. So I'm going to give you a rating in terms of dimmers, in terms of perfect dimming. I'm going to give you a rating of 3. Mainly because it wasn't 100% perfect in terms of smoothness, and you have to work on the ramp, not the ramp between, you have to work on the of how you're dimming when you go from the white, and then when you hit amber, it has to be the same percentage, it has to be the same dim curve, and it wasn't. And it cuts off down at a lower percentage, where other bulbs that are cheaper than this don't do the sunset thing. Like a Cree bulb actually goes all the way to 0 to 100%. It's not perfectly smooth, in terms of there's some flicker involved and some stair step, but it actually makes it. And that's important. It's important that it actually makes it to that level where yours cuts off at like 10% or more. It was like ridiculous. The guys who did it, who nailed it, of course, I'm always comparing this against, and you're saying, well, that's not a comparison. This is not a regular light bulb. This is a flood bulb. This is a 40 degree. This is a par 30. This is from TCP. They have the no compromise dimming. It is 0 to 100%. It is perfect. There is no flicker, ever. It is astonishing. Now, these are a little more expensive, of course, and they're traditional A bulbs, which they're trying to corner the market in the lower end, don't have the same technology, even though it's the same company. They have flicker, they have stair step. I would advise not buying it if that's important to you. Anyways, these guys are the perfect ones. Does this do the sunset effect? No, they said they're just going to perfect LED dimming to start, and they'll probably work on the sunset thing later. The sunset is harder for bulbs, lamps that are focused, because you've got to make that whole beam one uniform color, and you have to avoid having too much of a bright spot, center beam, focus, all this crap. Anyways, that's the perfection. I will say to Sylvania, congratulations, you made a bulb that was less than the cost of the Philips bulb, and it's in stores, but I think if you don't fix it, it's going to be a flop. So, good job, good try, and I'd probably hold on to it because you were like one of the first, otherwise I would return it. It looks like it was a flop. Based on Google searches in 2015, Sylvania now appears to sell only flood-type LED lamps with the sunset effects feature. YouTube reviews of these flood lamps, which are hard to find, show that the orange glow and poor sunset transition still exist, even when using recommended dimmers. Even though this product may no longer exist, we wanted to show you the challenges of making LED bulbs act like incandescents. If you'd like to see what we do here, and if you like it, if it's helpful to you, please support us through Patreon. Send us $1, send us a penny. It helps us buy better studio lighting and mics and things like that. One day we can get rid of the ads. If you have questions, send them to questions@answers.lighting, and I will answer them on an upcoming episode. And here's all the ways that you can get a hold of us. Social media, website, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think we have any other lower thirds to go through, so that's it. I'll talk to you next time on Lighting Answers. I'm Joe DeGanzik.